All righty, cool. Well, hello everyone. Thank you for having me. Thank you, Collab Lab, and thank you for attending. I'm excited to be here. It's my sincere hope that you'll get something out of this talk that you can find useful. Um, so at the end, please provide any feedback because I hope to make this as best suited for what's relevant to you as possible. Words over code. Grow your impact and career through writing. It's the name of today's presentation. But before diving in, let me just give a quick intro about myself and Datadog. So Datadog's a unified observability platform. We provide full visibility into the health and performance of every layer of your environment. So we collect data from your infrastructure, your services, your applications, and we link it all together in one place to make debugging easier. We provide a variety of products that are constantly expanding. We use this a lot internally. I think it's pretty awesome. I use it a lot. It makes my life easier, especially when I'm on call. So check out datadoghq.com. And so as you can imagine, with all these different products and a lot of customers, we're processing a tremendous amount of data. I'm a senior data engineer on the internal analytics team, and we focus on operationalizing the data for internal use. So teams and stakeholders across Datadog can make data-driven decisions. I've been at Datadog for a little over 2 years. I'm remote, based out in Long Island, New York. And at the end of the talk, I'll provide my LinkedIn and my website, so feel free to connect. Again, I'd love to hear your feedback. But now, let's talk about writing. But words, not code. I know, pretty boring, right? Who wants to talk about writing? We're engineers, we write code, we build things, we stand up infrastructure. We don't necessarily want to be writers or consider ourselves writers. But if you stop to think about the day in the life of an engineer, you'll realize we actually do a lot of writing all day. How many of you are writing something right now, maybe on Slack or an email? We write PR descriptions, we write Jira tickets, we write design documents. We need to communicate with our team members. We probably spend more time writing words than we do writing code. But how much time do you spend debugging your words or writing unit tests for your writing? I don't know if that's possible. That'd be interesting. Do you take courses to work on your writing like you do when you're maybe learning a new language or reading a new blog post about a new framework? So why should you listen today? Why am I giving this talk? Why should you work on your writing? Well, I think it's pretty important. Writing's something we do all day long. We use it to share ideas, ask for help, and build relationships. It's also likely that we've neglected this skill. Probably didn't study it much in school, maybe you did, but we sort of just do it. We kind of take it for granted. And so because of that, I think it can be easily improved. So with the tips in this talk and maybe making just a conscious effort to improve your writing, I think you can instantly start seeing better results. But ChatGPT, right? Why bother learning to write if we have ChatGPT or other large language models? Isn't writing just going to become obsolete? Why should we try? Well, I would argue that even with these tools, it's even more important today to be better at writing. Large language models are fun and they can definitely help provide value to go faster in our jobs. I do think they're going to become more ubiquitous in basically all industries, like many people are saying as well. And I think it's worth paying attention to, trying to figure out how you can incorporate it. But given what they're capable of today, I still think we should invest in our own writing ability. Because writing does two big things for us that humans simply can't fully replace. Writing helps you think. By putting your thoughts on paper, you clarify your thinking. You're able to better retain that information. You can see all the different pieces and ideas and help connect the parts to form a coherent idea or message. It helps you simplify your message too. And simplicity is, I think, when you fully, truly understand what you're trying to convey. So even if you're using an LLM, you still need to do this work up front by absorbing different contexts and the relevant information, thinking through what the problem is and what needs to be done. And writing to yourself can help you do that. And the writing obviously helps you communicate, especially as there's more folks working remote nowadays. Large language models can write code with Copilot and can help you with syntax, but as engineers, learning new languages isn't as valuable maybe today because we have that help now. So if you think of ChatGPT as like a calculator for writing code, well, you still need to communicate ideas, or you still need to leverage that cross-team collaboration that you need to do through communication. You can't necessarily do that by writing code. So by improving your communication ability, you'll be able to go faster, and the playing field for learning a new language seems to be leveling out, where it's not going to be as valuable to invest in a new skill, in my opinion. You're also building relationships across your organization. So as you take on bigger responsibilities, bigger projects at work, You'll connect with product teams or different stakeholders or even your customers, and you'll need to communicate trade-offs. You'll need to help communicate the ideas and the why to help other engineers prioritize the tasks they have coming at them. And another really big point around communication is that writing can help you scale yourself. So if you're constantly answering the same question to stakeholders or to new teammates that are joining your company, that's probably a good idea to write it down, write once and point to it forever. So it can help you automate processes. It can help you document decisions. It can also help you scale yourself by sharing ideas. So again, as you get more senior, you're gonna need more people to have that same understanding, that same buy-in to work on bigger projects. And you can build this shared understanding by communicating effectively. So hopefully now we're kind of convinced writing is still worth it. And so what is good writing? Well, I wouldn't say I'm an expert, but I've found some tips and advice over the years from various books and blog posts and things I've gotten feedback from others that were helpful. And so I summarized all those ideas into what I call the 3 C's. Now there's some overlap between these 3 C's. It's not perfect, but it sounds kind of nice. So let's go with it. I'm going to dive into each one throughout the rest of this talk and talk more about how we can implement them. But right now, I'll just introduce them for you. So the first is to be clear. We want people to understand our message. The next is to keep it concise. You want it to be said as simply as possible. And the third C is for Premium Prime Plus members only. Just kidding. Third C is to be kind. We work with other humans. So be nice, have fun. Communicating effectively makes work more enjoyable, helps you build trust so you can move faster. So we'll call it 2 C's and a K. But all 3 of these ideas really tie into the essential theme of respecting your reader. And by that, I mean respect their time, respect their energy. If you won't proofread what you wrote before sending it, why would you expect someone else to read it? As the writer, respecting your reader means you do the work up front. You think through your idea, you organize it, you make it clear, you make it concise, you make it easy to read. You take off as much work from your reader as possible by doing that up front. Everybody has so much information coming at them. So the more you can do that work and limit what you need to get through to your reader to convey your message, the better. So now we have this idea of respecting our reader, being clear, concise, and kind. Let's dive into each one with a couple examples and how we can improve them. And we'll get into some specific tactics that you could use to implement these. So now imagine you get pinged to take a look at this PR. Pretty vague. What is it doing? There's some caps in there calling this an urgent bug. Please merge ASAP. It's not very clear what the ask is. And then, oh my goodness, 317 files changed. I don't even know where to start with this one. So when being clear in your writing, think about your ask. What do you want? What do you want the reader to do? What do you want the reader to know? Try to put that main point first and be direct with using I, we, you, so it's clear who's to do what. In PRs and design documents, when you're commenting, annotate it. Be explicit with, like, again, your ask there. Clarify your comments. This is a nitpick. This is a major concern. Should we even solve this problem? Can you review this section for the business logic? Can you review this section because we're changing these IP addresses and I want to make sure I copied them from the right place? Organize your writing. Make it easy to skim. Not everybody needs the same level or the same level of depth and understanding on your message. So use headings, lists, bold, make it easy to go through that quickly. And be explicit. Instead of saying this or that, just use the noun again. Sometimes in written communication, it's easy to get confused with what someone's referring to. And I think it's okay to repeat the main idea. So with that in mind, let's review this PR and rewrite it. Okay, nice. We have a ticket number up there. Fix the file directory structure. Okay, so I kind of have an idea of what this is doing. The PR description just says we're moving config files to a new directory. Okay, so that explains why there's so many files changed. They're just being moved. They link a test run, and they ask very specifically, please verify the new file path. Awesome. It's much easier to read. I don't need to switch context too hard if I'm being asked to review this one. I know exactly what's being asked of me. I have better context. I like it. That's nice and clear. So now moving on to concise. Imagine you're starting a new sprint and you're tasked with this Jira ticket. Oh my goodness, that's a lot of text. That's not fun. You're going to have to spend time just parsing out what the ask is here. It's not as concise as it could be. It seems very vague. Implement advanced user role management. I'm not even going to read through this whole thing. That doesn't look fun. And I know the first task is, again, just going to be trying to pull out a couple bullet points for myself of what do I need to do? What are the requirements? Who do I talk to, etc. So let's try to make that more concise. Use as few words as possible to get your point across. Remove any words that doesn't add meaning. This really comes in the review stage, but if you can reduce the amount of text you're sending and still not change the message, then that's good. Then remove stuff that doesn't enhance or change anything with what you're trying to say. Try to limit the jargon. It's definitely okay in some cases when you know your audience well. Try to use simple words. The goal is to communicate, not to show off your knowledge. And another simple kind of rule is to use the active voice. That's where the subject is doing the thing. So saying like, I wrote the code or I pushed the code is active, whereas the code was written by me would be passive. It's a little more verbose, a little less clear. And somewhat related is not to hedge. So when proposing something, try to be more opinionated, have more conviction, because things that are loosely wrong might stick around or not get corrected. And then also just try to remove adverbs like generally or very. Try to not say maybe so much when you're proposing ideas or being having an ask of somebody. This way, again, you can get corrected as quickly as possible instead of it sort of being in this vague place where no one's really sure how to act or what to do with this message. So rewriting this ticket now, look at this. Implement advanced user role management. Okay, that's much more concise. We have a brief description, design and implement a flexible role management system, and the requirements are listed out in a nice list for us. And of course, if this is not enough detail, there's always more touch points in communicating where you could follow up to get more clarity. But initially, something like this gets to the point pretty quick. And now onto kind. Imagine you're on call. It's like a Friday afternoon. You've just been fixing a bug that you accidentally introduced with yesterday's PR. So you're tired, but you almost have it resolved. And then all of a sudden you get a ding from Mittens. And Mittens yelling at you. Facing some serious issues. My app is down, zero notice. I don't know why. Can someone please just revert the change? Please look at what my app. It's not being very kind, not very considerate. Reliable Pup's not going to be interested in helping. And it turns out they just didn't have their VPN connected. So when you're being kind, put people first, right? You're likely to work at another company at some point, but the relationships you build where you are today can last. You also have the experiences and knowledge you gain, but I think the most important thing I've taken with me from previous companies are those relationships. Remember that there's a person on the other end of your message. So be aware of your tone. Use emojis, especially in written communication. It's more effective, I think, to use too many emojis maybe at times just to soften any sort of message that might sound critical or might sound like disagreeing with an idea or proposing an alternative solution. Empathy. Try to understand the other person's perspective. Realize that they're on a different team. They might not have the same context you do. They also might just have something going on in their personal life or have a really busy day. Try to literally put yourself in their shoes, but also from as a person and also as a business context. That might mean tailoring your message to their level of understanding if it's a non-technical team, but you also use inclusive language. If you make a mistake, try to recognize that there's a difference between intent and impact. Apologize for any impact you might have had. It costs us nothing to use words that might be more inclusive. So just try to make an effort to do so. And again, just learn from it if anything goes wrong there. Feedback, give it. Being kind is giving feedback, especially on performance reviews. I know it can be tough to sound critical or try to offer some advice there to help someone, but try to think, why aren't they at the next level? What could they do to be more awesome? If you're a more senior person giving feedback to a more junior person, try to annotate or calibrate your feedback so they're not overcompensating for certain things you say. They might give a lot of credit to the words you provide, especially if you're higher level. So just keep that in mind when you are providing feedback to someone more junior, but definitely try to get out of your comfort zone there and think of something to give. Think why could they be promoted? How could they get there? So with that in mind, Mitten's now trying to make more of an effort to be kind, despite it being a very stressful situation. hey team, maybe I'm missing something. Could you check my app? And they provide the app name. They provide a data center for us to look at, little emoji at the end. Much more happy response, much better altercation, reliable pup who stressed out on call. Nice, not such a bad way to end the day. All right, so putting all this into action. The previous slides share some general tips and traits of good writing, but like anything for the best writing or like the best type of pasta sauce, it's all subjective. Sure, there's certain qualities that make it good, like for a pasta, make great ingredients, the balanced seasoning, food's not expired. But your preference, like what feels best, is your choice. It's your flavor of it. So in thinking through these tips, try to find your style, what feels right for you, what helps you feel authentic. It's your choice, it's your preference. Like as with any advice, take what's useful to you and discard the rest. But leaving this talk now, try to make an effort to implement a couple of these ideas. And the way to do that is to first, before you're writing something, think, who's my audience? What's the context they have? What's their perspective? How can I tailor my message to this audience? And then think, what is my ask? This is where drafting or writing to yourself can come in. The notes to yourself can help clarify your thinking beforehand. You can take some of that work off the reader by focusing on what matters, what you're asked, what you want them to do. And then write your message. Try to be clear, concise, and kind in a voice that feels comfortable to you. And then spend a moment to revise. Now, this is depending on the level of document. Like if it's a short Slack message, maybe you really don't revise. If it's a design doc or a PR description, you spend more time. But do the work, review it. At least a quick glance there, and try to remove as much as you can that still maintains your message to help it make it concise. All right, so to recap this talk, good writing is clear. We want to be direct. What is the ask? We want to be concise. Remove as much as possible without changing your message. We want to be kind. Put people first. And then take action by thinking through who my audience is, what's the ask, writing your message, and then spending an appropriate amount of time to review. So with that summary, if I had to boil it all down to 2 points, good writing or writing effectively is when you respect your reader, and then when you review what you write. And so that's the end of the writing part of this talk, but just for the Collab Lab, I have some bonus material that I think is good general career advice for engineers along with writing well. So I'll quick get into that. Habits compound over time. So as you enter your career, as you start moving from different companies, the habits you do day to day are going to add up, even small little things. So especially as you settle into a routine after you've been at some place for a while, like the time is just going to keep on passing. And so that could make the difference between 10 years of experience or 1 year of experience repeated 10 times. So try to get into good work habits, specifically slowing down to learn. So I think it's important when you get a task to spend a little extra time to dig a little deeper and go look up that documentation or go look into some concept that seems a little fuzzy that you don't quite understand. Especially early in your career, it's not so important to go fast through the tickets. Try to step back and really learn something. It's okay to go a little slower. You're definitely going to go faster and farther in the long run, I promise. But that discomfort you feel when you don't know something, that's a good sign to try to learn. As you lean into that discomfort, that's what growth feels like. And as I think through like all the projects I had that I really grew on, there was a lot of times where I felt lost, confused, where I wasn't sure what to do, but you slowly like look up a piece here, a piece there, and then things start to come together. Be okay with not knowing. So related to the 2 points above, I think a career in a tech is basically a career of constantly learning. There's so much out there. You're not expected to know everything. There's always new stuff coming down. Give yourself credit though, because you do know certain things. People on your team might look to you as the expert in certain fields, or you might be more familiar with a certain system than others. But definitely be okay with having that not knowing. It's okay to go into a meeting and say, I don't know, but I'll go look it up, or I can figure it out and get back to you. So if you don't know, it's definitely okay to admit it. Especially, you've gotten the job, you're on the team. having that sort of level of vulnerability to admit you don't know something and get back to it is terrific. And then it loops back into continuous learning. Build relationships. Again, I mentioned this earlier, companies change, but people stick around. Relationships is what makes work a little more enjoyable, and you can build lifelong friendships. And also, as you go further in your career, it requires more people to do stuff. It's that old saying of you go fast, you go alone, but to go far, you go together. The further you progress in your career, the more dependent you're going to be on other people. So try to be humble, empathetic, be supportive of others, help your colleagues. And another key point to this is that relationship you have with your manager is very important. They're there to help you. A good manager should always be helping and supporting your growth. So ask for what you want, especially like related to learning new things. What projects are you interested in? What are your aspirations for your career? What's something you're not really familiar with on your team that you'd like to learn more about? And tell your manager that, to ask them for a ticket on that kind of work. And then finally, take care of yourself. This talk and the ideas here were focused on work, but obviously life is much bigger than work. So if there's important things going on in your life that need your attention, like your health or family, prioritize those. There's always going to be more work to do. There's always more JIRA tickets. There's always to-do lists that never get finished. So find and set boundaries for yourself. Especially in remote work, it's so easy to always be on, but you really need to try to turn it off as best you can, especially if you're not on call. Just like turn Slack off, mute it. Taking that break really helps free your mind to process new ideas and to go further. And like it helps you, for me, I find it helps really recharge me with like just a fresh perspective on things, or just having the energy to be a better colleague. And so with that, thank you. I've provided some resources in the slides. These were related to writing on some various things that went into this talk that gave me some ideas. And here's where you can find me on LinkedIn. I also do some writing at chrislettieri.com. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Chris. Now, question time. Does anyone have any questions? It was great talk. Ooh, that bonus content. You guys are lucky to see it all here. That was amazing. Thanks for adding that. Anyone has questions? You could either put it in chat, or you could get off or go on off of mute and ask away. If not, or if you don't feel comfortable because I'm recording, you can always ask after I stop the recording as well. I think that'll be a-okay. So any questions? I think my favorite part is the respect your readers. That's a really great insight. I'm gonna give it another 10 to 15 more seconds for last minute questions. Oh, Caitlin, ask away. Oh, hold on. I see you off mute, but I don't hear you. No, not yet. You're gonna put in chat? Okay. While Caitlin is asking, anyone else have any questions? Or anything they enjoyed today's talk? Like I said today, I think the respect your readers, it's a good one. Chris, are you able to see the chat? I'm not quite sure if you are.
I can. So
Okay.
I'll read the question. Any advice for how to help your team improve their writing? Gentle feedback to give if they're not doing these things? That is a great question. I think it kind of goes to that know your audience idea. It's also maybe know the person and the flavor of feedback they like to receive. Some people and some cultures were more direct than others. So try to understand that, or try to tailor it if they're not as willing to accept direct feedback. But I think try to pick like maybe one thing at a time to push for. Like when somebody pings me and it's just a wall of text, I'm not sure what's going on, or they assume I have context I don't, I make sure I follow up with those questions. And I try to say, like, I don't understand the ask. Can you please like clarify? That's kind of a gentle nudge. And then maybe it's that performance feedback where you can kind of give, I call that out as like something to work on, because I don't think people maybe pick up in a reply, like when I'm replying to a message, that it's like, hey, I should probably work on my writing. Because again, I really don't think people think about it too much. So sorry, I don't maybe have as best answer there other than try to use any like sort of peer feedback that you can. And then also just try to like call it out as it happens by asking a question. Like, can you clarify this? What are you looking for here? Can we be more clear? If your team does retrospectives, that might be a good opportunity to raise it, or sharing some ideas with your manager and asking them for the best approach of how to get that to take hold as a part of your culture in your team. But thank you for the question. Yeah, another question. Chris, what does your writing practice look like outside of the work environment? No problem. I did not answer this. So outside of work, I try to just do it. Like I set a timer almost, and I try to just make the habit of writing something. Like, so that could be work stuff. It could be something for a blog, a newsletter. I like to take notes, and it starts very messy. So I'll open a Google Doc a lot of times and just start like brain dumping, just like writing the ideas, the bullet points down. And then after doing that for a while, so that's kind of related to that first point of writing helps you think. After getting all that stuff down, then I'll start to move things around or form some pieces for some bigger ideas, and then just sort of flesh it out, kind of going back, trying to form sentences, paragraphs, and then reviewing or proofreading that. But I think the key thing is that like most mornings I don't feel like doing any additional writing, or I don't feel like writing something. But if you just sort of set that little goal of 5 minutes a day, it becomes more like accessible, easier to start. And so by lowering that barrier of like, I'll just do 5 minutes and then whatever happens, happens. Some days maybe you just stop there. Other days maybe you go for a half hour. Like, but the fact that you just did a little bit, and that's back to that habits idea. After a week or a month, all of a sudden you have all this writing that you can practice in. And then so the next question kind of related is, how do you write for blogs? I think that's a very similar approach, and that's sort of the process I was outlining. It starts with just like brain dump ideas, refining that into a message, like trying to think through, what is my message? What do I want someone who's reading this to take away? Like, what idea am I sharing? What am I asking them to do? And then just structuring that into something that's easy to digest by keeping it concise, using bullet points, headers, trying to bold what's important. But thanks for those questions too.
I see Sahil has your hand up. Go ahead and ask away.
Hi, thank you for your great talk. One question I was kind of thinking about, I've occasionally I've worked with people, like I'm quite, for lack of a better word, like I'm pretty left-brained. I'm guessing like a lot of programmers, we tend to bias for obvious reasons. But I have worked with people who are quite creative in a very interesting and brilliant way. And I have found, I have come across in the past, like they sometimes get frustrated with like how logical everyone else is. And I was wondering if like maybe one argument against this style is that it kind of favors a certain way of thinking, and it kind of crowds out like other personality types that are very creatively messy and like I don't know if I'm wording it correctly, but do you understand the question I'm trying to ask?
Yes. So I'll just repeat it and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I understand. Some people are more creative, more like less structured and regimented, like the ideas I try to put forth here for good writing. So what would we say to people who are more right-brained, who like that sort of free form, kind of all over the place thinking? Is
Yeah,
that okay?
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So that's a great question. And I think I tend to be more left brain. So that's why this talk here is coming from me with that perspective. So I appreciate you bringing this up. I don't think I have a great answer other than trying to, like, to that one slide that mentioned, find what works for you here. So if you tend to be more right brained and like that free form thinking, remember that there's other people out there who aren't, or who maybe have a lot of information to digest, and it's a little harder to do that in like a big wall of text. So maybe a little refinement could help and work for you. But again, I think it's just find like some, maybe there's some tips here that resonate more with you. Maybe there's not, but hopefully there's a way to do that freeform part still. It's just maybe when it's more public message, it's a little shorter, easier to digest for others. I kind of think that just in the flood of information we all face at work, that anything that could be said shorter is usually better. Or so like making that ask that you want very clear at the end, or just being a little more concise with what you're saying could help. But definitely, if like what works for you is that free form sort of thinking, like I think that's a lot of what my right to myself looks like. And then when I'm sharing it with someone else, I try to just sort of pluck out like the highlights of that.
Mhm.
So again, with anything, like I don't think there's a right answer here,
Mhm.
but try to like stay true to what works for you. And if if you have feedback on how people are perceiving your communication, take that into account and maybe adjust. But definitely don't change who you are based on like the advice in this talk or anything. But just like find what style kind of fits, and take what tips maybe resonate with you the most.
Thank you.
Sure. Thanks for the question.
All right, anyone else that may have questions or feedback of today's talk? Actually, I have one question for you, Chris. I'm not great at writing. Do you have any tools that you use to kind of help you with that writing instead of, because I feel like I just kind of word vomit, and then, I'm worried about the grammar, the syntax, just the flow. And there's a million tools out there. Do you have a personal favorite tools to use to help you kind of refine that writing before you have somebody else take a look at it?
So in the slide at the end, I linked a couple of the best highlights that I felt like answer that question, like, or the ones that answered it for me. So I would definitely start there as far as just like advice. The only tools I really use are sort of like the built-in word check, a spell check, built-in Grammarly is usually pretty good. Um, but one thing I have been using a lot more is ChatGPT for like brainstorming ideas, or using it to help me sort of flesh out an idea when I'm not sure. Like I think it's like a good therapist in that way. It'll just answer your questions, and maybe it says something with a different perspective that helps you see it better. So I think in that way, like that's how it can be used as sort of a tool to bounce things off of. But like for sort of proofreading, I think Grammarly and also like just the built-in stuff, Google Docs is pretty good. I use those the most. But thanks for asking.
All right, awesome. Oh, and will you be able to share the slides with me, and then I could email it to our attendees today,
Sure,
so they could have a reference for that.
sure, of
But
course.
before thank you so much. Before I end today's Tech Talk, anyone has last minute questions? All right, I'll take silence as as a thumbs up that everybody's kind of good. Please reach out to Chris if you have any other questions or concern. And thank you so much, everyone, for attending today's Tech Talk. I appreciate it, and have a great rest of the day. All right, Chris, can you hold on for a second? I want to stop the
Sure.
recording.